is good. We're going to be in Colossians chapter 4, verse 2. If you'd like to open up there and follow along. God's good. We're blessed to be here. I want to thank everyone that's come out, and I want to say we're very proud of our three graduates that are here today. It's very exciting. I know there's a lot of big transitions that are happening, and they're all a lot of good, but maybe a little bit of nervousness. I want us to take time to, or is that right? Three, okay. My math is not always the best. I'm just making sure I got it all right. But I just want to say, hopefully everyone, you'll take time to come over and tell them at some point how proud you are of them and how to encourage them a little bit. But God's good. God is good. So I was thinking a lot about that. I was thinking this idea of transition and what you want to tell them, because they're coming to it. Their high school time is coming to an end, you know, and I know they've been waiting for that for a long time. I know I was when I was in school. But Kristen loves it, though. She wishes she could stay longer, right? But God's good. It's a hectic time. I was thinking about something Paul was telling this church here in Colossians, because two things I think about is as you leave high school and you're going on and moving on in life, and a lot of us experience it. I'm kind of speaking to them, but I'm speaking to everyone, really, is distractions and focus are things that are very important. And Paul was talking to this church here that has gotten distracted. And I don't know about you, I hope I'm not the only one that can sometimes easily be distracted from a plan or things that are important. And unfortunately, I was going to say that I just have a little bit of ADD, but Kyle Long's here, and he's been working with me over the last year, so he's probably going to tell you after, though he's got extreme full-blown ADD. And sometimes you make a plan, you know what you want to do, you know what's important, you're going in a certain direction, and what happens? You get pulled in different directions, and then you go, hey, wait a minute, Ricardo, I thought you were going out to, Hurley Road, and I said, oh yeah, I forgot about that, right? Or whatever it is, I mean, it's easy to get distracted in life. And Paul, he was talking to these believers here, and we get to chapter 4 and verse 2, and this is why one of the reasons why I think it's important is because when people are going to say their last things to somebody, they try to say what's important. Right? You need to listen well. You try to emphasize something that's very important. It's like, unfortunately, as a minister, I've been around a lot of people when they pass away. And when someone's passing away, man, you really listen to the things that they're saying, because they're saying important things. They're saying things that are meaningful, things that you need to pay attention to, things that really mean a lot. And the beautiful thing that I hear always when someone is about that point, when they're getting that way, is they talk a lot about relationships. Right? They don't talk a lot about, I wish I would have worked more. I wish I would have made more money. I wish I would have had a bigger house, a different car. A lot of them, they stop and they talk and they say, man, I wish I would have maybe had a better relationship with God. I wish I would have spent more time with my wife and my kids and things. And that's very similar what this letter really talks a lot about, because the first couple of chapters in Colossians, he's talking about the relationship with God. They've gotten distracted. They've gotten distracted in life, and he's trying to tell them, don't forget, because this entire Bible, from front to back, as I've studied it through the years, I realize it boils down to just a couple of things. We can get real caught up in all the things that it talks about, but it's about a relationship. It's about a God in heaven that wants to have a relationship with his children. And then it's also about a relationship with his people, having a relationship with others, right? With his people and with people on the outside. And those things are very important. But guess what's happened to this church at times? They've gotten distracted, right? And I think about that as we have these seniors that are moving on in life. Man, I imagine you're going to be really busy. You're going to be really busy. I mean, you think that high school's so busy, and I just talked with Alex real quick before, and I've seen her a few times around town, and the thing I've heard her say both times is like, man, just one thing after another. It's almost over, but trying to get through it. Like every week, every day, it's something that's going on up until this point. And you almost have this idea of like, when I graduate, it's finally going to slow down. Wrong. Right? No, it's not. It's just going to be different. It might even speed up more. And it can be real easy to happen. Is what's happened to this church is this. They've got distracted from what's important. And what's important is this, that you maintain a relationship with God. right? That you maintain a relationship with God in every transition of your life, because it's very easy. And I think, and I'm speaking to all of us, because I think a lot of the times it's even easy for us, even though we know it. Life gets happening, things keep going, and you realize, like, wow, I haven't been focusing on my relationship with God as much as I should, you know. And then he goes and he talks about, you know, before we get to chapter 4, you know, you get to chapter 3, and he's really focusing on relationships with other people. You know, I mean, those are things that are important, but man, it's so easy to get distracted and to get bogged down with the things of, I imagine, homework and work and all the things that are coming along. And I love what, you know, Paul would say here in Colossians in chapter 3, verse 12. He says, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with one another and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against one another. Again, two things that are really important as you move forward in life, and sometimes it's hard to get, or it's easy to get distracted, and to focus on this is, man, relationship with God and a relationship with other people. It's so important, and this church was very distracted, and like I kind of shared already, you know, I mean, I see myself struggling with a little bit of like ADD. I get distracted easy. As I think about graduates moving on in life and going to college, going to work, maybe moving away and things like that, the caution I have is sometimes like this: we can easily develop a spiritual ADD. Right? We can be so caught up with the things that are happening in life that we get distracted from the things that are important. And you have to, right? You have to work. You have to do homework. You have to do all kinds of events. Everything that, all these things are important. But it's so important that we don't develop a distraction or a spiritual ADD and kind of forget about a relationship with God. Or forget about how important it is, our relationship with other people. We're here on this earth for a purpose. Right? We're here on this earth for a purpose, and we need to be the people that God wants us to be. And so Paul, as he gets down to verse 4, he says something here, and it's just in verse 2, and I thought about something simple, something that's important, something that helps our lives. And again, I'm speaking to everyone here. But Paul is telling them, when he gets to chapter 4, it's his final instruction. Like, this is the last thing I want to tell you. And when you get to the end of Paul's letters, he's saying something that's important. He's saying something that he wants you to walk away with. He's saying something that God wants you to carry off in your life that's going to help you. And all of us need that. So he says this. He says, devote yourself. Be devoted. No matter what you're going to do, the next step in life, if you're going to advance, you're going to have to need some what? Some devotion. That Greek word there, devotion, it means this: to be dedicated, to be loyal, or to be faithful to. You know, and there's certain things that all of us are a little bit devoted to, and I was really thinking about it. For me, it's coffee, right? It's one of those natural things. I mean, the word here that means dedication, it means faithfulness or loyalty. It means that you develop a discipline that you consistently practice. There's the idea. This is what he's saying. If you really want to keep your relationship with God where it needs to be, if you want to maintain your relationship with other people in the way that God wants you to, and let me tell you something, your relationship with God and other people is going to make things go so much smoother for you in life. Right? And he says this, here's what he wants them to walk away with. He says you need to be devoted. You need to develop a discipline that you consistently put in place. And like I tell you, for me it's just natural. When I get up in the morning, I don't ever forget to have coffee. Right? I don't, man. I get up, I'm going to brush my teeth, do a few things, but I'm gonna have my coffee. Why? I'm very dedicated to it. I'm faithful and I'm loyal to it. It's going to have to be something really important where I jump out of bed and it's just like I've got to go, and that rarely happens. I'm probably still going to figure get one cup and get on the road with it, right? Stopping at the Allsup's, something. At least have one cup a day. It's not something that I have to really think about. It's something that just is natural to me. And this is what Paul is wanting this church to do, because they become distracted. He wants them to say, hey, listen, your relationship with God is very important on your time here on earth. Your relationship and how you treat other people and how they're going to treat you, it's very important while you're living here on earth. Because listen, we're all going to stand before the judgment seat of God someday, aren't we? Man, and these are things that are important to God. He wants them to be important to them. And as you move on to life, He's saying, I want you to equip yourself. So be devoted. Be dedicated. Be faithful. Be loyal to these things. And so you don't get distracted. And what the word that I see here is this. As you move on and go into school, go into work, go into whatever you're going to do, you got to be careful with the distractions and try to be devoted and focused on just 3 simple words, right? And I'm going to be honest with you. I find myself still fighting distraction and focus even though I've been a Christian for 19 years. Right? I'm speaking to them, but guess who I'm also speaking to? Speaking to myself. I'm speaking to all of us. Speaking to all of us. He says, I want you to devote yourselves to the number one is this, to prayer. To prayer. I want you to be devoted to prayer. Listen, our prayer life is our connection to the creator of this universe. And where should we include God, and what parts of our life should we include Him? With everything. But man, if you're leaving home for the first time, or you're going into a school environment, or you're going into work, you're going into something that you've never been into, man, you really need to continue to have a connection with God. This is the way we invite God to be a part of whatever we're doing. And life is going to go so much better if we do things with God helping us than we do it on our own. And let's be honest, most of us, a lot of us, have a tendency to just kind of live life the way we want to. And then we hit these roadblocks, we hit these conflicts, we hit these difficulties, and then we normally go, oh God, get in here, man, I need some help. But that's not the way it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be like this. God, guess what? I've got to take a test today. I need you with me. God, I got to drive to school or work today. God, be with me to protect me. God, you know what I need? I got a meeting with this person. Lord, be with us. Help. Lord, I need to make a decision about financial decision, about a class I need to take, about a job a job opportunity, whatever it is. God, get in here with me and help me put myself in the right position. Because who knows better, you or God? God. We're talking about the creator of this entire universe that spoke it into existence through His words. I think He knows a little bit more than us. And I think that we should include Him. Think about this. This is the God that we serve. He wants to be included in our life, but we've got to be the one to invite Him. And I imagine the parents of these three that are graduating, that if they were going through something or some tough challenges or had to make some hard decisions, how would their family feel if they never were told about it? If they were going through and it was a hard decision and it was causing them pressure and then they end up making the wrong decision. And then later the family finds out about it. What would they think? It'd be like, well, man, why didn't you tell me? And you know what? We have a little. I mean, I know the young people don't want to hear this. Is that the older people they know a little bit more because they've been through it, and it's maybe not because they're so much smarter, but we've made the mistakes already, so we can correct them and say, this is probably the better answer, and that's true. But it even goes further. God knows. God's the same way. He wants us to pray. We sometimes don't let people into our situation who could have helped us. But sometimes we don't let God into the situation when He can help us. As human beings, so many times we're trying to do things on our own, and it normally doesn't turn out the way that it should. And Paul's saying, listen, you're being distracted. I want you to be focused. I want you to be devoted in something that's really going to help you maintain this relationship with God. We need a relationship with God to make things continue to go smoothly for us in our lives. It's like yesterday, I had to go out to a funeral. I was out there all week, and I got home about 1:30. I needed to go speak here at a quinceañera, say some things at 4. So I worked on the thing in the airport. I got home. Guess what? The internet's out, right? There's no connection. So I had to do things the hard way. I had to do it the old-fashioned way, and I ended up just writing it down on a piece of paper and doing the best I could. And I wasn't used to that. And I thought, and it dawned on me so much of like, one reason, man, like we're way too overly dependent on the internet nowadays. You know what I mean? The internet goes out and your phone's gone. It's like the world stops, So now the kid wouldn't have this sort of stuff, right? But the truth is this: there was this connection that was broken, and things did not go as smoothly for me as it could, it become very difficult. That's how we live life sometimes. There's this connection, this internet connection, but there's this connection that we're supposed to have with God, that we invite Him into our life. We ask Him to be involved in the situations, and guess what? Things go a lot smoother when we do. And when we don't use that connection, we do things on our own, and guess what we're really doing? We're doing things the hard way. Because God He's the creator of the universe. He knows so much better, more than we do. Now we think we know, because sometimes we just go around telling God how we want Him to do things. Instead of just inviting Him into the situation and just saying, God, be with me in all this and help me to make the decisions and guide me in the thing and give me the wisdom and give me the decision making and all these things. And things are so much smoother than when we just do things on our own, because we're humans, and humans make mistakes. So Paul's telling them, I want you to maintain this relationship with God. You've become too distracted. I want you to continue. Because has anybody else in here had difficulties in relationships before? Now, how does that make your life better or worse? Does it make it more comfortable, less, all that sort of stuff? And so, man, when we do things God's way, things are so much better than when we do things that our way. And there's my challenge for them, but it's also for us, right? It's also for us. So he says, devote yourself. Be faithful. Be loyal. Be dedicated to prayer. Get God involved in your life in all the areas that you have. The more that you can involve Him, the better things are going to go. He knows better than we do, right? And it's not easy. You have to develop a discipline that you'll consistently practice, just like going to the coffee pot. For you, it might be something else, right? It says this. He says, being watchful. I've thought a lot about that. I think this is something that we forget, that Paul is saying, and that Jesus says the exact same thing in Matthew, of this idea of prayer and watchfulness, to be alert, to be very careful as you go back out into the world, because it's so easy to not just be distracted, but we can even sometimes really fall asleep spiritually, can't we? Is it easy to do? Man, that's a big fear. I mean, you have a lot of young people that go off and work or college or whatever, and some of them really slide off and they're no longer really even practice any spirituality. Right? Even people that went to church for years. And let me tell you, of course, I grew up a pagan, but I can tell you, there was a time where I just God wasn't involved anywhere in my life. And it's common, right? It's common. It's a danger. It's a danger. Why? Because you're going to be around a lot of young people that haven't had the good upbringing that you have, that haven't had the principles that you've had, that haven't had the inclusion of God in your life and spirituality and other believers. And it's going to be real easy to get distracted and even fall asleep spiritually. And let me tell you something. I really believe America's fallen asleep spiritually. And now we got this big wake up, and what we should have done is we should have been spiritually awake all this time, so we could see the small, subtle things that are happening in the world around us. And it's really easy to do, especially when you're young. I'm not trying to say negative things, I'm just saying, I'm speaking from my own experience, right? I know Roy never done this stuff, but here's the truth, Paul says, I want you to be dedicated to prayer and also being watchful. Be alert. Be alert. Two places I thought about this is important. Peter would say this in 1 Peter in chapter 5. He says, be alert and of sober mind. Why? He says, your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. He says, be alert. Think about this for a minute. When we watch those wildlife shows and there's a lion out there and he's prowling around, who does he normally devour? The one that's weak, but also the one that's that's not paying attention. That's not paying attention. It's important that we are alert. Listen, I want all of us, and I'm not just speaking that, I'm talking to everybody. We are in a spiritual war right now in our world and right here in our country. The things that are happening are not political things. They are spiritual things that are happening that are attacking our youth. It breaks my heart sometimes to, even going to school. I mean, you'll go to school and universities, you'll start to hear things like, evolution is fact and it's proven and there's evidence that's it. And you start to go, wait a minute, I thought God created the things. No, this is proven. This is fact. You know what I mean? No, it's not that. Small, subtle things before you... when we lived up in Illinois, they were saying so many things to our children and the young kids in school that were very counter-Christian, just right there in the school system, and telling them, ingraining them, and saying, this is true. This is true. And it was subtly saying, hey, the Bible is not true. You got to start making choices. Sometimes you don't see. And how have we got to this point now where it's normal? Right? Because why? Because we haven't been alert. We're talking to them, but guess who we're really talking to? A lot of us. Because things have been happening for the years, and we've been kind of spiritually asleep, haven't we? Right? Man, I really want to encourage them and also us to be devoted to prayer, but also to be alert and to be watchful of the things that are going on. And if you're not connected here with this God, and you get distracted and have a spiritual ADD, it's real easy for subtle, small things to take place around you, and you're not realizing it. Right? We want to continue to grow and become closer to God and not further away from Him. Real quickly, Jesus, I thought about this idea when Jesus was in the garden. He's getting ready to go to the cross, and I know we're hungry. And when he goes there, you remember he tells his disciples, he says, go sit down, and he says, pray. Right? He tells you 3 times. And what happens to them those 3 times? It says they fall asleep. Verse 41 of Matthew chapter 26 hit me this week when I was looking at it. It says, watch and pray. He uses the same word that Paul did. He says those 2 words together, watch and pray. Be alert. He says, why? He says, so that you will not fall into temptation. He says, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Watch and pray. Be alert and pray. Those 2 connections there. Stay connected to God, but also be spiritually alert. He says, so they won't fall into temptation. They were falling physically asleep, but spiritually, what happens to them? The Roman guards come and they said, hey, Jesus, we will never, ever turn our back on you, and we'll go to die or be in prison with you. What happens? They fail. Why? Because they weren't alert and they weren't in prayer. There's something to this. Paul's saying the same thing to them. He says, I want you to pray and I want you to be alert. One more thing here, that's the last word. I'm trying to speed up here, but I'm such a late bloomer. It's taken me so long to learn how much life is different when it says this. You're devoted to prayer, also to being alert and to be watchful. But here's another one. He says, and be thankful. Man, I think society through the generation has got us to a point where we're not such grateful people, and it will affect your life. It really will. It is, man, gratitude is such a powerful thing that we need to carry in our life, and the fact that I finally started ingraining it to look for the things to be grateful for. Because here's the truth. If you focus on the negative things, are negative things going to happen in life? Like daily maybe or weekly? Negative things are going to happen. They're not going to go the way that you want them to go, right? But if you focus on the negative, you guess what happens? You slowly stop to see the good that God's doing. And when you stop to see the good that God is doing, you even start to not even have a real positive attitude about God, about the things that He's doing. Why? Because you're always seeing the negative and you're not focusing on the positive. God is doing great things for each and every one of us. There's a verse here that always challenges me in 1 Thessalonians. And it says, and he uses the same combination. That's why I say there's a recipe here that I'm trying to get in my own life, and I'd love to see young people walk out with it. He says, rejoice always, right? Be positive. He says, pray continually. There's prayer again, right? I'm in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 16. He says, rejoice always, pray continually. And then he says this, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will. Now, whose will is better, God's or yours? God's. Now, think of a challenge. It challenged me so hard. He says, to be thankful in all circumstances. So that means always. And what I've had to do, this is what I've had to do in my own life, is that I've had to flip over a piece of paper and I write down whatever challenge it is, whatever I'm negative about, whatever I'm having a hard time with. Then I put a line and I put all the things that I could be thankful for. And I can tell you what, I can go 2 or 3 pages. Like number 1, I'm thankful because I woke up today. Is life guaranteed? Did everybody wake up? Man, isn't it unfair that there are people that pass that young age? I just went to a funeral of a 42-year-old. that I grew up with and watched his family mourn. And I take, you know what I do? I take for granted every day that I wake up, because sometimes I forget to just wake up and go, God, thank you for waking me up today. Life's in general. I heard a deal where this guy said this to a person. He says, how joyful would you be if I said I'm going to give you $1 million? And they go, man, I would be joyful, right? We'd all be joyful. And he says, and how hard would it be for something to take away your joy, like a bad day? If I was giving you $1 million and let's say, just like normal, things don't go right, do you think you'd still stay pretty positive and joyful? I'd be like, yeah, like I've got $1 million coming. He says, even better yet, what about if I said, I'll give you $10 million, but you're not going to live tomorrow? So, are you going to take the $1 million? Of course you're not. Why? Because you're not going to enjoy, you're going to die. So he said this, a day of life is more important than $10 million. So why aren't you joyful? The same joy you would have if I gave you $10 million, why aren't you that joyful when you wake up? Because it's that valuable. Because why? Because we haven't trained ourselves to be thankful and to be full of gratitude. Man, it changes life. I mean, you can be, just to be thankful that you have an opportunity to go to work, that you're finished with school, that you're going to go on to college, that you're going to study something, that even whatever opportunity is that you have, every day you can just be flowing out with thankfulness. How about that I have a God that loves me? I failed Him. Anybody else ever failed God? I know y'all are perfect, but I tell you what, do you make mistakes? Do you sometimes get spiritual ADD and forget to pray, to forget to read, to forget to even acknowledge there's a God? But guess what? He still loves you. He covers all your mistakes. Man, I mean, this is a good and powerful, wonderful God. He's loving and forgiving and kind. How many times does it take you when someone hurts your feeling or does something to you, and then you kind of go, I'm done with that guy? You know, like Kyle's celebrating. He's like, this guy's out of here, man. Like, I've been forgiving this guy all this year. You know? But the truth is this. Most of us, like, if we give somebody 3 or 4 chances, we're like, man, I'm a good dude. Like, I should have cut that guy out the first time. But that's not this God that we serve. It doesn't matter how many times you mess up, how far you go away from Him. And I want the young people to hear that. He's always here saying, come right back to me. I'm here for you. You can't do anything for this God to turn away from you forever. It doesn't matter. This is a good God. Man, I can be thankful for that every single day. I have food, and I have a roof over my head. I have a vehicle. I have food. I mean, they haven't changed the lock on the door yet in the church. Where I came back and said, whoa, wait a minute, I still got a job. Quick story here. You know, I was on the plane and I was going out to a funeral and they lost my luggage, man. And I'm like, man, I got my Bible in there, I got my sermon notes, I got like, what am I mean, quickly my anxiety goes, trip's ruined. I'm gonna mess up, like a fool of myself. Like, you know, I'm going through all these scenarios and I stopped and I said, wait a minute, like, I'm just blessed to be going. I'm just blessed I'm going back home and I'm gonna be able to see family and friends I ain't seen in 20 years. You know what, I've done this sort of stuff for years, you know. I'm just going to be thankful. And here's the thing. It doesn't help me to worry or overthink or to get negative about a situation. Now, my bag came back. I left the funeral at 3 o'clock on Friday, and I arrived yesterday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I almost went 24 hours traveling, trying to get through airports and delays and all that sort of stuff. I could have easily just been so angry and frustrated, and I just sat there and reflected and said, man, God, you gave me a gift to take me back home. And now you're bringing, and I didn't die, right? Each plane I got off just fine. Man, I have so much to be thankful for. It would have been easy for me to sit there and been frustrated and angry about everything was going wrong all the way. I want you all to realize something. Things are not always going to go smoothly. Life doesn't always play fair. There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be difficulties. But if we're careful and we stay connected with God, because we get our strength from God, we get everything, encouragement, everything from God, and we see spiritually what's happening instead of just physically, man, we can be people that are full of gratitude, and life can go so much better and so much smoother. And I wish at your age I would have realized all this sort of stuff. And man, here I am, 47 years old, finally starting to dawn. I'm like a very thick-headed person. I just want to encourage these young people to chase your passion. Whatever it is, whatever's on your heart, you say, that's what I want to do with my life. I want you to chase it, not money or whatever else, just whatever it is that fills you, that encourages you, that makes you feel like that's what I want to do. I want you to chase it. I want you to pour yourself into it. I want you to not take no for an answer. I want you to get up as many times as you need to get up in order to make that happen. But I don't want you to get so filled and focused on it that you forget about this God in heaven who wants to walk with you every step of the way. And be careful, because all of us have got points in our life where we weren't spiritually awake and we made bad decisions, and it caused us so many more problems that we could have avoided if we would have been more alert. And remember to be thankful, to be thankful, to be thankful for every day, for every opportunity, for everything that comes to you. Because the Bible says this, every good and perfect gift comes from above. There's nothing that you have that God hasn't given to you. Things would be so much better. I want to thank everyone for coming, and we're so proud of you, and we're so encouraged, and we're going to be praying for you every step of the way. God is good.